Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Year 3 PWN-USA Policy Fellowship graduation. So we are to celebrate the Year 3 Policy Fellowship. They've had an absolutely amazing year. They've gone through a lot of challenges and had a ton of amazing successes, a lot of which we're going to be celebrating on this webinar right now. And so with that, let's talk about what they've done. So this policy fellowship this year lasted 9 months. So it was a relatively quick program considering all they put in. The fellows completed over 12 web sessions of new policy trainings where we actually invited policy experts in the field to come and talk to our policy fellows about the ways that they do their work and some of the best practices. They also 12 graded assignments, and this was to really ensure that after they did these webinars, they're demonstrating that they understand it and diving more deeply in with the material. They attended 9 coaching sessions. So each of the fellows had a specific coach that they worked with, who is someone who's doing policy work in the reproductive justice or HIV space, advocacy space. And so this is so that they could have a less formal environment to troubleshoot some of the issues that they were coming up against as they were doing their, as they were learning and doing their practicum work. They also showed that they knew the information they were learning by teaching both a midterm and a final review, where they actually taught back all of the information they learned both halfway through the fellowship and after the fellowship was completed. They taught a policy topic on the PWN policy work group. So everyone chose one issue that was a policy issue and came on and explained it to their fellow PWN policy work group mates. They also spent 2 months developing and completing practicum projects with a host organization. This is something that we're going to be diving a lot more deeply into as we go forward, and I'm actually going to ask each of the fellows to describe what it was to all of you. And then lastly, everyone attended a full day in-person training at USCA, where we got to build community together and really start diving deep and into like difficult concepts and policy issues. So we did things like, you know, how to talk to lawmakers, and we started really planning into our practicum in person. So with that, our amazing Year 3 graduates. So we have Antoinette Jones, Connie Shearer, Deidre Johnson, Collins, Rika Rodriguez, Sharon DeQueer, Cheryl Lamb, and Sophia Cass. And you'll hear more from each of them personally as we go forward, but right now I just want to take a moment to say congratulations, and I see a ton of congratulations already in the chat box. I see, so excited to be a part. Congratulations, everyone. Congratulations, graduate. There's so much love being thrown at you all right now. And so from here, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it over to Connie to start us off in talking about their practicum. So Connie, if you wanna unmute yourself, tell me when to go to the next slide.
Okay. I'm ready. Thank you. And thank you all so much for this opportunity. For a lot of us long-term survivors, these opportunities are things that we wouldn't otherwise have had the chance to do. I found out I was living with HIV right around the same time I was going to go to college, and I just had a baby. So for me, I chose because I didn't think, you know, I was going to still be here. So I chose to stay home and raise my daughter instead of going to college. And I'm having these opportunities to do a practicum project, to learn policy, to become, you know, the leader I never had the opportunity to, or thought I would have the opportunity to be. So for me, this has been amazing. And I think you, Kelly, I think all the coaches and PWN, I thank you so much. So I won't cry, but because this is so cool, I'm so excited. For me, So those of you that know my advocacy know that being in Nevada, I've had a really hard time getting people to work with me as an individual advocate. I'm sure it's something you all deal with. I know I've talked to a few of you about you're having the same issues. So I reached out to Tammy Hout of the Zero Project, and she said yes immediately. And so I was so thankful because HIV criminalization is very near and dear to me. Having been falsely accused in the past and terrified of having my freedom taken away, this has always been something I wanted to work on. So what we did was we created in Nevada this year. Our governor, they passed a bill, SB 284, and that created the task force for HIV modernization reform. And so they're still convening. Like I applied to be on the task force, and the governor, they just sent us another form to fill out and send in. So this task force hasn't even formed yet. And whenever I started reaching out to the people in the community, because like you guys have taught us, we should control the narrative around modernization. So, but everybody I reached out to in the state of Nevada kept saying, no, I think we should wait until the task force is formed so they can release the information and release what they want us to talk about. And that really bothered me. With Tammy, I created these palm cards, or this palm card specifically for Nevada legislators. And I'm also working with Senator Yvonne Kinsella, and she's going to help me disseminate these next year, probably January, maybe February. She wants to wait until the formation of the task force and the announcement, which is fine. But after I created this, what was wonderful to me is that once everybody saw it, a few of the Southern Nevada Health District, I'm on the Southern Nevada Prevention and Planning Group, and they reached out and wanted to know if they could put their logo on this too. So after hearing so many people say, well, you should wait, to have them reach out and want to be included, really empowered me, I guess, to know that, you guys, Tammy and everybody, with everything that I've learned, helped me create something, that I think is very beneficial to the work we're doing in Nevada. So I'm not sure how you wanted me to do it, Kelly, if you wanted me to go over, because not everybody's on video, is that right?
Yeah, so everyone can see the current slide, and then I think that was a great introduction. If maybe you just want to talk a little bit about the palm card itself, and then I have the second page as well.
Okay, great. So yeah, the first page of the palm card, it was so wonderful to have Tammy's support and guidance, because I probably went through at least 60 or 70 rough drafts. I feel so bad for her, but she really helped me streamline this down into the front of the card. We wanted to be specific about discussing, all of the advancement we've made, keeping it very simple about why the laws are problematic, more of an explanation, and an explanation of what's wrong with the laws, and why we need to update them. So it's no, I'm sorry, go ahead, we're good. And then the back of the palm card asks for proof of transmission. And whenever I was doing my research, what I really liked was the verbiage they used with using like a realistic possibility of transmission, because it's one thing, and I didn't know that even until I created this, the difference in asking for asking proof of transmission compared to a realistic possibility. So I even learned so much about moving forward and how we talk about this while I was making this. And so one of the things that they weren't, the people in Nevada, they were worried that we would be moving ahead too quickly. But what I like is the fact that so many other states have already modernized, that it's so easy to just take what they're doing and implement it, you know, where we're at. So at the bottom where I had promote public health, originally I had something about an affirmative defense, because for me, learning that most of these crimes, HIV criminalization, the proving that we're innocent it falls back on us, and that's almost impossible. So it was so important to me to have that on there. And then whenever Tammy explained, like she just said it plain, she said, you can have whatever you want on there, but I'm going to tell you, the legislators, they don't care about that stuff. So it was very profound for me to understand that something that may mean a lot to us, whenever you're dealing with policy and legislation, it's important to understand how they think and that they don't think like we do. So that was very important for me. It was a big deal for me to learn that and understand it, and then to bring the focus in and always on promoting public health, because what I'm finding now that because those of you that don't know, 3 months ago, my employment situation changed, and I'm no longer employed within any nonprofit or agency. I actually work at a pot factory. It's okay, it's a cannabis factory, but so I work with a lot of well, all negative people, like mostly Republicans, which is funny because we're working around pot, but we have all these Republicans who, you know, so, but one thing that I've been so thankful for was the opportunity to have these discussions with these people, because they know nothing about HIV. They knew nothing about HIV modernization. But whenever I was talking as an ally about this card that I'm creating, and I told them, you know, the things that we're asking for and how it promotes public health, I've literally taken a whole room full of women who knew nothing about it, and they're totally on board, and and it's true, because regardless of whether you're positive or negative, promoting public health is always going to win the conversation, always. So that was very, very it was such a great learning experience, this whole 9 months. I mean, this has been a really hard year for me, emotionally and work-wise, but being part of this policy fellowship was a huge benefit to me, and I need you all to know how much I appreciate you, and I value your time, and thank you so much for doing this for us. And I think that's all I have, other than, oh, the Senator Yvonne Kinsella, she's absolutely wonderful. She's even offered to pay printing cost for this card. She's doing an advocacy day with us in Carson City. So, and she's already agreed to work with me on a couple other policy topics that I would like to tackle. So moving forward, that's, you know, in my advocacy, this has literally done nothing but open a whole new world for me, that even if I don't get back into working within an agency for that works with our community, I will be able to take this and use it in my day-to-day life. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm already working on in Nevada, we're trying to recreate the bill that was just passed in California to help educate and the medical professionals on to end health disparities against women of color.
Thank you so much, Connie. That was amazing. I'm so sorry if this screen dropped out for a moment. My connection was a bit unstable, but I'm on a different network now. And so I just want to say thank you so much. Using model legislation, I think, is one of a big lesson learned about like not recreating the wheel when something great works.
Yeah.
Drawing from that. Yeah, thank you. And so from here, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Sophia. Are you on, Sophia?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. I'm going to mute myself.
Awesome. So thanks again, Kelly and Positive Women's Network for the opportunity to learn and grow. This year has been filled with, from my end, a lot of learning opportunities, particularly when it comes to policy and how to change and challenge policy. Kelly, can we move to the next slide? So my assignment was about, so Positive Women's Network and the Positive Trans worked this year to produce a trans-centered reproductive justice fact sheet. Kelly, I was trying to look for when we actually put that online. I think it was in the summer, if I'm not mistaken. And so my project was to build a framing document as to why we actually need to have this fact sheet. And the goal is also to have this framing document become the voice of the community, calling in other nonprofits or particularly in the reproductive justice world or work so calling them in to think about what trans-centered reproductive justice should look like. And so I'm gonna go briefly, you know, as a framing document, it's very wordy, so I tried as much as possible to, you know, summarize and give you all the main keywords. And so I started this framing document by saying, what does true reproductive justice look like? And what does true trans-centered reproductive justice look like? And so true reproductive justice true reproductive justice is when all people have the economic, political, social, cultural power and resources to make and carry out decisions about their health, their families, their futures without control or coercion by other people. And so if you look at this definition, there's two main words. It's the power to make the decision and also the resources and the access. And so also true trans-centered reproductive justice is when all trans and non-binary people without discrimination or stigma have the bodily autonomy to decide for themselves if and when they want to have children, and also to parent our children in a safe environment. Also, on top of the decision-making is also the access. So again, this is kind of a two-faceted issue. It's an issue about the fact that we are able to make the decisions and no one is coercing us. And the second facet for this issue is to actually, once we do make that decision, to have access and resources to carry out this decision, and a safe space to raise our families. Next slide. So what is actually the problem? And we did, in the framing document, talk about the problem that we are addressing. The problem is, the way we put it is about language and coerced sterilization. So language today in reproductive justice, in a lot of, let's say, reproductive justice milieus or places, is that the language is very gendered and biased towards the cis-normative way. So for example, the right for a woman to choose, that has for long, like almost a decade, been the main message of the reproductive justice movement. But we know that not just women have the right to choose, but also, you know, trans women, trans men, non-binary people. So that kind of shows you the exclusionary language. Also, the language in healthcare forms and policies. How many of us have filled out forms, for example, me as a trans person, where they ask me if I'm pregnant, right, as a trans woman, or trans men trying to fill out medical forms or healthcare forms where they actually, you know, ask you who's the mother, who's the father, you know, those kind of cis-normative roles in society. Well, you know, the cis-normative part of it. And also, trans men, for example, because of these language barriers, have faced hurdles into getting into care, for example, getting a pap test or pre-exposure prophylaxis, because the language reinforces the bias that, for example, oh, trans men don't get pregnant, or trans men are not at the risk of transmitting HIV, and trans men or non-binary folks who are assigned female at birth, for example. So again, the first issue was the cis-normative language. The second issue was, or is, the coerced sterilization. How does coerced sterilization actually happen? It happens when states force us to forego or to undergo sterilizing medical procedures. So we are able to change our gender and name markers on birth certificates, for example. And so by forcing us to choose between either you can change and get legal recognition, or you can have reproductive justice. That's really an unfair choice and an unjust choice. That is, so, and as an example, I even looked up that 17 states still require sex reassignment surgery to update the birth certificates. Even 3 states don't allow it. So here we have 20 out of 50 states that is forcing people to choose between either being themselves legally and identifying legally, or family planning and reproductive justice, which again, like I said, is unjust and unfair. And the next part of the framing document, after the description of the problem, is what have we been doing as a community. And so, I kind of gave an overview of the transgender community's struggle for self-determination, all the way back to the 1966 Compton cafeteria riots in San Francisco and the Tenderloin, going through the Stonewall and riots in 1969 in New York City, just to show you that, we have been fighting for our right to self-determine, ever since the 60s. And to also point out that this battle has not always been faced outwards. We're not always have been, pushing against, let's say, the Republicans or the other side. Sometimes even we had to push again or to call in our own folks. Particularly, for example, in 1973, where Sylvia Rivera tried to have a word on stage, and they shut her down. Or, for example, during the marriage debate, where the particularly cis white gay establishment kind of hijacked both the funding and the narrative. And to bring us more to actually what we are doing right now for reproductive justice, in 2018, Positive Women's Network and the Transgender Law Center and Positively Trans convened a think tank with community leaders to start talking about what does reproductive justice look like for trans people. We also, with Positive Women's Network, had a community shareback session at Creating Change in 2018. And we had a couple of listening sessions to our community members to talk about their healthcare needs and reproductive justice needs. Next slide. So now that we've talked about the problem and we've talked about what we've been doing, we kind of got to the point where, what do we want? Right? What is our ask from this framing document and the fact sheet? Because the framing document will be coupled with the fact sheet, and it will become a call from the community to, like I said, to other orgs to join the conversation and hopefully have a meeting in the first or second quarter of next year. And so what do we want? One, we want to call for a reproductive justice coalition that is deliberately focused on trans-specific issues. We also want to call the RJ community to come together and imagine what trans-centered reproductive justice could, should, and must look like. So this framing document, as I said, will constitute an open invitation to organizations within the RJ movement to an in-person meeting, so we can start discussing these things. And finally, our ultimate goal is for our bodily autonomy to be respected, and that includes the choices that we make, right? And the decision making, particularly in this instance about family formation. And the second component is that we have equal access to services, the same access that our cisgender folks have, siblings have. And I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Sophie. That was amazing. I think this project's a really good example of how we kind of envision the practicums generally as living projects. It's something that's going to carry forward. It's something that Sophie's obviously been thinking deeply about before starting the practicum, and it's going to carry on after you're a PWN graduate. So great work. Thank you so much for your contribution. Very exciting stuff, and I can't wait to hear more as we go forward.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, from there, I'm going to turn it over to Antoinette. Are you in a place where you can talk?
Hi, yes, I am. I don't know if you all can see me.
We can see you and we can hear you. All right, I'm going to mute myself. Take it away.
Okay. Hi, I'm Antoinette, and you guys, I'm just so happy that we made it this far. And the reason being is because of the two presentations that just came before me. Sophie and Connie, you guys did awesome. Sophie, I'm going to reach out to you because everything that you detailed in your PowerPoint is stuff that I need for my PowerPoint and presentation. So please respond to me if I stalk you. I'm so sorry, but I need your information. You're so smart and everything's perfect. So we can go to the next slide. So I did my presentation it's not done yet. I'm doing it next month for a MSM serving organization or same gender loving organization called He Is Valuable. He Is Valuable is an organization that started here in Atlanta 2 years ago, and they have been doing tremendous work in this community around HIV and destigmatizing HIV, decriminalizing HIV. And I'm very close with their CEO and co-founder, Richard. He does a lot of work with Advocates for Youth. He does a lot of work with so many other people, VIV, everything, just spreading knowledge, just spreading the word about what HIV really looks like and how it affects the MSM community. So I wanted to basically inform them about RJ, help them understand that reproductive justice is not just a woman's issue. It's not just about abortion, as we often hear when people mention reproductive justice. That's the first thought that comes in their mind. But it's a lot of intersectionality. It's a lot of work in different communities. It's a lot of work together. So I wanted to create a PowerPoint that is interactive, that is fun, that is useful, and that is understanding regardless of your age, how you identify, who you are, and it's just all around inclusive of everyone. So this is just a slide right here from my PowerPoint it's just RJ dating app, and you will swipe right if your belief and morals align with reproductive justice. So you can go to the next slide. So if you believe that people should have full body autonomy, then you will swipe right. If you believe that Black and brown people should live freely from oppression, then you will swipe right. Do you believe that people should have access to healthcare, employment opportunities, and living conditions regardless of income and social status? You should swipe right. And do you believe that sexual education should be LGBTQ inclusive, comprehensive, and updated to reflect modernized scientific research? You should swipe right. Many of the people in our community that we serve would swipe right, but if you would swipe left, that's kind of questioning. So next slide. And congratulations, you're matched. So we want a world where people have social, political, and economic power and resources to make healthy decisions about our gender, bodies, sexualities, and families for ourselves and our communities. As was said by Sophia, she hit it right on the nail. This is what we all want for our reproductive justice. This is what we're advocating for. This is what we're building community for. And of course, like I said, I just put Idris Alba because it's Idris Alba. Why not? And we are all Idris Albas in our own way. He's so fine, and we all beautiful. So we out here. You can go to the next slide. And then what we talked about all year was how is HIV reproductive justice. Like I said, I'm working with He Is Valuable, and they specifically serve men in the HIV community who are living with HIV and those who are at risk of HIV. So I want them to see like HIV is also a RJ issue, and here's why. So of course, people living with HIV deserve access to complete and total healthcare and benefits to live a full and sustainable life, and housing is healthcare. As you know, in Georgia, we've been battling the HOPWA crisis and our budget cuts around HOPWA. I know in other southern states they have been too. And we're just waiting patiently. We've been battling homelessness, and peers of mine are currently experiencing homelessness. I facilitate many youth cabs for hospitals and stuff. And that's just all we hear. Like, they come to the youth cab to get the incentive because that's really like the only income they have, and they're homeless. And it's just so much. And how can they balance their healthcare and balance housing? It's a crisis right now. And then of course, as we talked about our rights and our justice, so it's the right of people living with HIV to have equal access to all opportunities, as well as rights to access information related to a HIV diagnosis. I didn't start to receive so much information about HIV until I got into advocacy. That's a problem. Like, everyone deserves this access, whether they want to, be at the forefront of this epidemic or be in the back and be silent, but still be advocating. So, and then justice, people with HIV deserve freedom from oppression and not to be criminalized based on laws that are not based on scientific research. It's about time we update these laws in all states, not just, New York. We need it in the South, and it's been since 30 years, 1980. So, next slide. And then this is just a collective exercise for us to do. You can put in the chat box after all of our advocacy, all our learning. I wanted us to think about, in the past few years, a political or social movement that we've lived through. We don't have to pair up with a partner, as it says. That's just for my presentation. But we should, in the chat box, we can discuss one of these questions. So what was a moment that made the movement feel irresistible to you? Or what barriers have stopped you from seeing yourself as someone who can make movements? And the reason I want us to put it in the chat box is so that throughout this presentation, maybe we can respond to what someone else says, and we can help each other moving forward, so that after PWN is over, we still be involved, of course, but we can continue to do our advocacy and our work and come together collectively and reach out to each other and continue to make change. So thank you, PWN. Thank you, cohort members. Thank you, everyone, for just the information, the knowledge that we all shared. And thank you, Kelly. Kelly, I'm so appreciative of you, because I did not think I would get this far with work and everything that I had going on. But I'm so, so appreciative of Kelly, and she's such an awesome mentor, and she's been there throughout. So I think that's the end of my PowerPoint.
Thank you so much. And I'm appreciative of you and all the other fellows. Now, don't go offline yet, because I wanted to ask you to say just a little bit more, because these are 5 slides from a huge PowerPoint, but then you're going to launch this PowerPoint and do even more from it, right? Like, you have big plans. And so I'd love to celebrate those. If you could just tell us a little bit about where you're going with it.
So yes, I'm hoping to reach multiple MSM serving organizations and many other people who don't really understand how RJ affects them. So like here in Atlanta, majority of the organizations are MSM, because that's what the epidemic says is most impactful. But and Sister Love, Sister Song, there's only a few who do intersectionality work around HIV and RJ. So that's really my goal, is to share this presentation PowerPoint with as many organizations as possible for 2020. Also to deepen it, as I mentioned, Sister Love got a grant, and so did He Is Valuable, and we both have to do needs assessments. So I'm hoping to work with them around their needs assessment, and incorporate. I feel like their needs assessment will be so much more stronger and impactful if they think about just the wide scope of injustices that affect all people, not just, you know, those living with HIV, but other people as well at risk, at the highest risk. So yeah, I expect this to be so much more broad, and I'm so excited for where it can go. And I'm also, it's not just a me thing. That's why I keep stressing. I'm like, I can't just have my information in here. I need information from my sisters, my brothers, everybody who does RJ work. And that's why I'm going to reach out to Sophia, because her presentation was so awesome. And so many other organizations who I feel like can add their pizzazz onto this presentation in PowerPoint. So.
Amazing. Thank you so much. One of the things that I think is really exciting about this fellowship is now that y'all are like the third cohort that's graduating, there's 30 other PWN policy fellows that you can link in with who are doing a lot of work, and then organizations that they worked with. It's like the network is growing. And so it's great that we can like learn from and build on each other's expertise. Thank you so much for that presentation. And from here, I'm going to turn it over to Deidre. Are you in a space where you can talk?
Hello, fam. And I'm so excited, everybody. Yay. Thank you. I have to echo what everyone says. I feel bad going after all of those great daggone projects. We're going to figure out how to do some change, reinvent the wheel on dating apps. Antoinette, if you make a heterosexual one of those, please hook a sister up, because they keep telling me I need to find a man. I don't want one, but just in case, I know I can find one with some good morals. I can hook up my brothers and sisters with some reproductive justice in the trans. I am so excited about what's going to happen with that. And then my sister in change, Connie, thank you, boo. Because I have to be honest, Connie was very instrumental in helping me with this project. So I have to say, give her a major shout out. And of course, Kelly. Those crazy calls when Virginia is like, hey, we got some exciting stuff going on. You've been right there, you and Brianna, and I really appreciate it, the whole staff. So I'm gonna make this quick, y'all. So we can go ahead to the next slide, and the next one. So I made a little pretty slide, there we go. So listen, y'all, I had the amazing opportunity yesterday to present all of this to the Virginia Department of Health and the community planning group that of course included all folks from across the Commonwealth of Virginia. And when I say they are excited about criminalization, they are overly excited. And of course, my host organization was Echo VA. And so I helped them to create some talking points, as well as a kind of mocked up version of what Connie presented on her palm card. I made it a whole, I don't even know brochure. I made it into a brochure for Echo. So these are just briefly, if you can see your screen, these are just the two. I know, I'm sorry, you guys might hear my niece in the background. First off, hold on, y'all. Baby girl, where'd your clothes go? Y'all bear with me. She's on the spectrum, so all things, you never know what's going to pop up over here. Bless her heart, Jesus. She eating a mango in her drawers. I'm doing this presentation. Okay. All right. Thank you. High five. Thank you. Auntie has to do this presentation, and then I'll play with you when I'm finished. Okay. Awesome. Sorry, y'all. Life. I'm back in Atlanta, and when I'm with her, life stops. So here we go. So here's what I presented to them. They were aware of our codes, Virginia codes, in that infected sexual battery. And that's for those of us that are HIV positive. And we have to disclose example, in Virginia, you must disclose your status prior to engaging in, it's not uncertain sexual activities, it's very certain on the sexual activities, because it does include all sexual contact. And regardless of whether or not protection was used or if the person was virally suppressed, it does not matter. We can still be charged with affected sexual battery for engaging in sexual activity, and especially not telling. In addition to that, we have amazing laws, yay, Virginia, where we can actually be, in addition, so if I am having a fight or there's an assault, and if the person is HIV positive or one of the persons included, they can also be, some extra charges can be tacked on to the assault charge. And then of course, with the donation of sale of blood, bodily fluids, tissues, and organs is also criminalized. In our statutes, we not only have HIV, but we also have HIV, hepatitis B, and syphilis that are the three things that are listed. And we'll go to the next slide. And of course, here's what the conviction policies are. We have, if you're class 6 felony, if you're convicted, Malia, I'm gonna need you, hold on here. Malia, I don't know what you're doing, but it doesn't sound good, honey. Come over here and see Auntie and show me. Yeah, live. 6 months, class 6 felony would be up to 5 years in confinement, and a misdemeanor class 1 would be 12 months. So 12 months to 5 years, depending on the conviction, and the fine of up to 25 years. Now, if you happen to have been convicted of any sex work crime, then it is mandatory for you to actually be tested for HIV, and as well as other drug crimes. So one of the other things that are conviction possibilities are isolation, quarantine, and mandatory treatment. So we, of course, want to look into those things. And then our next slide will show, of course, what Cyril has taught us and embedded in our brain, all of the 5 things as to why criminalization does and does not work. When I showed this slide yesterday to Virginia Department of Health and CPG, they were like, the first thing that they said was that it works against public health. And they want to figure out a way that we can work together so that we can make sure that this does not work against the public health, as well as to try to decrease stigma and discrimination, and as well as it doesn't make sense for our justice system. The science, of course, does not align with our laws. And that was something that they were very, very like, this doesn't work, because we talked about whether or not people are undetectable. We talked about whether or not people are using protections or good faith, as the CDC says, employment methods. And we want to make sure that, if anything, that we are on the track to make sure that all of those don'ts are do's, and all of those do's stay do's and not don'ts, is what we're working towards. In our next slide, so what I spoke to them about what people in Virginia can do, and one of the things that Kelly and I had talked about was what's going to happen next. And what I will say is, from that, we actually have made a plan. So I actually have February, May, June, August, and November already scheduled, to where I will be going to the different regions of Virginia, and we'll be presenting about criminalization, what we can do, and also speaking to the folks in all of their CABs, the community advisory boards, as well as they've asked me to join back on to the CPG, as well as also go into a peer-led group that they actually sponsor, that goes across the state and speaks to individuals living with HIV. So we're now created a whole program, and we actually got asked, so I don't know where this funding is coming from, hint, hint, anybody? We've actually been asked to translate all of our stuff into Spanish, and to find a Spanish-speaking person that would be able to actually present this for us in our Spanish-speaking communities, and to also partner with, as well as the immigration services and folks that are working with immigration, so that people are aware of what's going on. So that's actually, so I've already got that plan for next year. My months are kind of filling up, as well as going throughout the state in addition to work with women to discuss about voting, the positive votes, as well as some of the other things that we talk about in this policy fellowship. So I will be partnering with a new agency that was just created called Just Be You, who focuses on women and empowerment of women, and then with the specific interest for women living with HIV. So that will be our partnership that we've already aligned, and we have already got 3 dates scheduled. Our next slide, I believe, shows just what, thank you, Connie, what would I do without Connie? These are the two things that I created. One was the fact sheet, and this is just about a little bit of information to hand out to people. To legislators is the one catch, because I will say thank you, Policy Fellowship, because in the midst of our conversation, we actually pulled up the LIS. Oh, yes, and we looked up laws that are currently on the books. And I have to get back to y'all, because what I did not review is to see, I believe on December 10th, something came out about this. So I don't want to definitely tell you, but I believe that they're going to have something on the floor in Virginia about changing those laws and prayerfully taking out a whole bunch of stuff. So our ultimate goal is to have that heard on the floor, and then in 2021, if things go right, we will be striking out the words HIV, syphilis, and hepatitis B in the General Assembly if things go the way that they're planned, but you know how that is. So this is one thing that we will be presenting to, actually sending out to organizations. They all took a look at this yesterday. And then on the next slide, you'll see what I actually created as far as, thank you, Connie, with our kind of brochure, and it talks about the mission statement at ECHO, about HIV criminalization, how it works, why it works against public health. The one thing I will say, and I'm very interested in suggestions, is I really feel like this is text heavy, but if you guys have any suggestions on how we can make it less text heavy, I would greatly appreciate it. But this was handed out yesterday to everyone, and they are super duper excited and about what's going to be happening in Virginia. So modernization is on the forefront, y'all. It's on the forefront in Virginia. We're super excited.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Deidre. And I have a question for you. Who started ECHO Virginia?
I, myself, and Cedric Pulliam, we co-created it. And I have to be honest, I have to give credit where credit is due. If it was not first for the Positive Women's Network, I would not even have gotten to the second point, which is Sarah. And that was because I came to the summit, I believe that was 2018. I came to volunteer and was like, yeah, I think you guys have heard how I told Wahida to sign up at the registration desk because I had no clue who she was. And I think Tammy heard something, and Tammy, if you're on the line, I still have the note you slipped me at the in one of our lunch sessions. And you were like, we're trying to do work in Virginia. And from there, I was able to get into HINAT, HIV is not a crime. And that's where I met Cedric. And we recognized that there was only 3 people from Virginia that were even represented or even there to do work, and there was nothing going on. So he and I both decided to create this, which is ending criminalization of HIV, and we're also doing a dual prong of over-incarceration in Virginia. So we will be also looking at sex work as well as the marijuana laws as well. So that we're kind of doing both bold. And we just got contacts with the Department of Corrections in Virginia yesterday, and they're super excited about having us to come in and try to decrease some recidivism and do some direct services. And we actually have one presenter, actually a member of our coalition, who was criminalized for HIV in Virginia, and he actually attended with me yesterday and shared his story to the CPG. So that's another part that we're going to implement, is as we're doing community awareness and education, that we would like to have a person from Virginia that was criminalized so that they can share their story.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And along the lines of connecting anti-criminalization to voting efforts, I encourage everyone to check out PWN's Vote Positive. You can go ahead and Google it. Take the pledge that you'll vote in 2020 and get some updates from PWN. So thank you so much, Deidre. From here, I will,
Thank you.
Of course. So from here, Miss Jamie actually was not able to join us. So her practicum involves gender marker ID change laws in Texas. So she's in the process of creating a palm card that explains what the current process is if you want to change your gender markers on your ID documents, identification documents in Texas. So that's something that's in progress, but unfortunately she wasn't able to come on and present it today. But I just do want to celebrate the hard work that's gone into it. She's done a lot of really deep research to find what states have good laws and has made a really compelling argument for why it's such an important topic to start to tackle. So for there, I just want to take a moment and celebrate all of the work that she has put in, and hopefully I'll be able to get her on camera explaining her project because I don't want to do that for her. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Sharon. Sharon, are you able to talk?
Yes, I can talk.
All right.
Can you hear me well because the machine is running behind me?
We can hear you perfectly.
Okay. So first, I want to thank everybody for the opportunity. It was a tedious 9 months. There was a time I felt like I wasn't gonna finish because I actually had gotten sick right after we started, and here I am today because I was determined not to give up. So for my project, as you can see, we're gonna do well, first of all, it took me a minute, maybe once we got the assignment, to kind of decide what I was gonna do. And even though I completed, and this is my project, I had basically outlined another totally opposite idea, but that still dealt with advocacy. So for this one, what I did was for my pre-work, I started recruiting people living with HIV, like in the community and in my area. Elections were about to start coming up, so therefore our state legislature, actually over a half of it or newly elected legislators that just came in, that were elected in. We have maybe 2 or 3 people who were unopposed, so they just automatically got that seat. But the elections were very ugly. Some of them said horrible things about each other. I mean, the basic election strategies that people use. And with that idea, I figured maybe we should do a legislative, advocacy, HIV advocacy and awareness day. And what happened was, y'all, I am so sorry. My nurse just walked in. Can I speak to her right quick and maybe we go to the next person? I could come back.
And when you're ready, let us know.
Okay.
Great.
That's okay.
Okay. So we will come back to Sharon. It's an amazing project. I can't wait till you all see the whole thing. You're getting a quick view of it right now. Close your eyes if you don't like to see slides going quickly. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Cheryl. Cheryl, are you?
Sorry about that. Yes, I'm
sorry.
here.
All right, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and turn it right over.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I just want to say that this year has been, or these last 9 months have been wonderful. It's been a great learning experience. I can't thank PWN enough. I can't thank you enough, Kelly. And all of you guys that have been there to support me the whole way. I would have never made it through this. My background is such that I had to, I was fearful to come out and even speak about it. I was fearful to even join PWN and try to come out and speak about it. So I can't thank you guys enough for inspiring me to do this. And I feel as emotional as Connie, I'm about ready to cry. All of you guys have done such great work. Watching all of you has truly inspired me to move forward, because I truly was afraid. I was in the middle of my career and moving up as I got too ill to go on and had to retire. And I really felt like I needed to be in a closet and shut myself away because of the stigma that I felt as that was happening to me. I had family members turn on me, friends, family, I mean, you name it. And if it hadn't been for you all, I wouldn't be here right now. And this practicum, this whole process has truly helped me come along and be able to speak about it. It scares me every time, and I'm out there doing it because I know that I have all of you behind me, and I know that we've all been through similar things, and that helps. I can't tell you how much that helps. So from that, we'll actually go into why I chose this project. I chose it because the stigma that I felt here in Oregon, I chose to do a fact sheet on the U=U message and make it specific to Oregon. Oregon is weird, so I had to put a little spin on it. It's going to be like UN is UN for Oregon, because, you know, we're different. Or at least I'm trying to cater to my audience. There was no information here in Oregon at all about U=U. What seemed to me that people in the profession knew about it, but they weren't speaking about it. It seemed to me that people were afraid to speak about it, to let the clients know that we're okay, that we can be loved and touched without fear, that we can be, that we're okay, and we don't have to hide in a closet. That's what that message did for me. And I didn't read it in a brochure here in Oregon anywhere. I couldn't find it, any kind of information anywhere, except for in a Pause magazine. I read it in a Pause magazine about a year ago, and it literally made me cry. I was in the middle of an intake and I just started bawling because it really lifted a weight for me, and it really helped me quite a bit. So, you know, I did this project to try to, because there was no information out there about it in Oregon anyway. I wanted to do that to combat the stigma and the shame that comes along with a diagnosis like this sometimes. Not sometimes, like every time, I think. And, you know, some of the challenges that I faced was like finding a host, because I had been so isolated for so long. I hid myself away for a good 10 years after I had to retire. It wasn't, I just didn't feel like I was accepted until now. So one of my problems was finding a host. I found a host by reaching out to my state lead, Brandy, and if she's on, I can't thank her enough. She's really helped a lot along the way. She's been there to support me the entire way. I had to fight my own fears of talking about it, and from being in the closet for so long. And then the other challenge that I see is really getting the information to the people that need it. It seems to me that all the healthcare professionals know about it, counselors, people in the HIV community. However, no one was really talking about it. No one was really spreading the information and helping others to feel more empowered. And I think that this message actually helps people adhere to medication. I think it gives you a reason to live. You don't feel as stigmatized as you did before. It's a simple message, but it's very empowering. So I came up with an idea to have a brochure come out that is like me talking to you, and make it to where anyone who reads it can understand it. That you know, that even people without HIV can still understand what this means and where you can get your information. The process that I went through has been interesting. I had a rough draft that I presented at a networking meeting with professionals, and in that meeting, my rough draft went out to everyone and their brother. I could not believe it. I mean, it took off. And this was a rough draft. I really didn't want it out there. I was just showing it just for, you know, so people could get a visual of what I was doing. And it went everywhere. So what wound up happening is that from that, I was asked to come and speak at a panel. I was asked to I was asked to present at the Ryan White Council. I inspired them to sign on to the U=U campaign. I inspired Oregon Health Authority to sign on, but it kind of took off long before I was ready, to be honest with you. So, but I couldn't be thankful enough. I mean, I'm very, very grateful that it did go ahead and take off. With or without me, doesn't matter. Either way, it took off. And this has opened a whole new door for me. You know, during this process, I met with a client advisory committee, or a client advisory board at Multnomah County. I got feedback from about 20 clients and staff, was able to interview them. I got a lot of thank yous. I got a lot of feedback from that. I got a lot of tears from that. This simple little message just meant a lot to these people as much as it did to me. And that was amazing. I thought I wasn't the only one, but sure enough, I wasn't. Then it went from there to meeting with the HIV networking meeting, professionals in the community, community leaders, for feedback on the rough draft. And like I said, it just took off like wildfire. I met with Cameron from the U=U campaign to see what he thought about it, and they just loved it also. I've met with Cascade AIDS Project, which is a big organization, HIV organization here, who's having me and the state lead here, Brandy, do some presentations and get the word out and educate people, the people that really need it. Yeah, the result, and I've been invited to Ryan White to present to them so that the message can get out in a much wider, broader way. And I'm going to continue the education. I'm going to take this to every county health organization that I can find. I'm going to take it out to private institutions, any HIV organization that I can find, and try to get the word out there as much as I possibly can, because this little message really means a lot to people. And it does help inspire. I think it will help to end the epidemic. It isn't the end all or be all of everything, but I do think it will help a lot. I also put information on there as to where you can get housing and mental health help, so that I'm trying to reach a wide range of people and trying to speak to them just as if I was having a conversation with them. That's really what I was trying to accomplish. So that, like I said, anyone can understand it. So it's my hope that this message will be given to people that are affected by HIV, the incentive to talk about it without fear, people without HIV, the incentive to talk about it without fear, to test and live without fear. So that is my goal. That's what I'm hoping. And I really just can't thank you guys enough for empowering me, teaching me how to do this. And the doors that it's opened for me are many, and I'm planning on going on and, geez, taking some of you guys' ideas that you have here are absolutely wonderful, and just go on and continue to advocate for what we believe. So, and I'm hoping that that'll help to end the epidemic and end the stigma that we all feel, and that we're all accepted. And that's pretty much it for me, I think. And I can't thank all of you enough. So thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. This is an absolutely fantastic project. It's so impressive to see something that's really complicated broken down in a simple way.
Yeah.
I also just wanted to say, as you were talking, it reminded me that, you know, the PWN fellows go through 7 months of training. These folks went through 7 months of training. And then when they go under their practicum, we don't guide where the project goes. It's in between the fellow and their host organization. But we do encourage folks to try and see if there's a gap that you can fill, if there are resources that are necessary out there. And this is what you did, Cheryl, by the reception that folks had when you put out a rough draft and it got a lot of attention. It's very clear that you were filling a gap there. So great job, and we're excited to hear what happens in the future as you continue to go out and get the message out there. Congratulations on a fantastic project.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so from there, we're actually going to end up going back. So all right, close your eyes if you don't like to see rapid scrolling through. It's happening. Sorry. Okay, Sharon, I'm going to turn it back over to you, okay?
That's fine. I'm here.
Great, go ahead.
Okay. So before we actually scheduled the date, I kind of recruited people from the area, but my goal is, if you, one thing, there was one correction on the other slide that I didn't make because I just got notice on yesterday. I had solicited, did some fundraising. I got a commitment from my host organization for a match of $500, but the Baton Rouge area nurses and AIDS care are actually going to be giving me $250. So I have a match. I guess I have, so you could say I have $750 to actually help the project go through the process, because it's going to actually be like a 6-week process before the actual HIV/AIDS Awareness and Education Day. Okay. So you could flip the slide. So this is our overall training schedule. So we're gonna start January the 9th, which is actually the 2 days after the new legislatures are actually sworn in, when they do their little oaths and everything. So we do have some appointments that are gonna be scheduled, but all of these appointments here are actually, I'm sorry, you flip, that's the training schedule. Okay, so the overall agenda for the program is, in week 1, we're gonna do an introduction. And what that's gonna cover is sort of like the Legislative Advocacy and Education Day. We're gonna talk about the HIV/AIDS landscape in our community. And actually, one other thing, when I say our community, my area, it's composed of 9 parishes, and Baton Rouge is the center. So we're gonna I'm including people from those other 8 parishes that are actually surrounding Baton Rouge. And then we're gonna talk about the process of what the training is gonna entail, go over the plan like for each week. And then each week has a specific topic. As you can see, week 1 is actually the introduction. Week 2 is, we're gonna talk about what is like advocacy, HIV. We're gonna do a lot of just background information. And in week 2, also, we're gonna talk about what is advocacy. You could flip the slide because I'm like on 3 pages. So the process of what we're gonna do is like, we wanna actually, after the 6 weeks training, we through this process, we wanna make sure we are the people that they get to know. We give them reliable information, and they call up on us if they need ideas. We want to use our personal stories. We want to use information that we learn. We want to be able to share with them how HIV actually impacts our lives, and if it's not directly for our lives, like people that we know, how it actually impacts. We're gonna tell them about how the disparities of health, in Louisiana, it affect us. Sometimes there's not enough services, or there's not enough transportation dollars. And one of our acts at the end when we're doing our visits is to make a plea, because Louisiana, as far as like HIV/AIDS funding, whether it's for prevention or treatment, we do not get no state dollars. There's not a line nowhere in our budget, not for our state, not even emergency financial assistance. Every dollar that comes into Louisiana that treats HIV/AIDS, prevention services, housing, is all federal. So we want to actually, at the end, at our acts, make a plea that they take that into consideration, and considering that this group of legislatures, the majority of them are actually new. Hopefully, some of our personal stories will actually allow them to see the impact, and maybe this may be the group that'll actually change something. So you can flip. So as you see, as I just said, so week 1 was the basic introduction, and you can kind of skip past. Okay. So the way I kind of set the trainings up was like go from like 9 in the morning to like 1:30, 2 o'clock, we're done. The first training, when you'll see in the future trainings, like I wanted the group to kind of really get to know each other. So you'll see where the registration and the icebreaker, maybe it's like 30 minutes at this first one, because we're gonna do stuff like, get to know a person. Like, how you do a simple little interview, maybe like 3 or 4 questions, but then you have to introduce the person you interviewed to the group, something that'll make them comfortable with each other, and at the same time, let them learn things about each other. And then again, like you'll see with each overview, we have those things like identified in that actual training for that week. You can flip. So the same process for like week 2, but we'll be focusing on advocacy. We'll be defining what is HIV/AIDS awareness, what is advocacy, what is action. We'll talk about how do we create a plan, what is the action, what do we want to do, what do we want our outcome to look like. Flip. So in week 2, again, the same thing with the agenda, where you can see that the introduction and the icebreaker is a little longer, and then we're gonna be defining these terms, and we're gonna go over the coalition purpose, the mission, and what our goals are. And in this week, instead of having like a social, let's still get to know each other, like lunch break, like we did in week 1, we actually be like do what we know as a working lunch, in order to end the day. Every day we'll end with questions and wrap ups. Flip for me. And that's the actual, and you can see for each week, we are focused on a specific topic. I'm gonna be using some local PWN fellows or PWN women to actually assist with some of the trainings. So far on board, I have like Meta Smith Davis. Gina is gonna assist. So I've kind of like worked out a lot of the speakers. So in week 3, we're gonna actually be starting to creating and developing personal stories. We're gonna talk about why they're important. We're gonna be introducing some templates to use, like for instance, like your family tree, when you were diagnosed, HIV diagnosis, and like your personal timeline. And when creating them, we're gonna talk about and teach them that not only does it have to be compelling, but it needs to be able to create a call to action. You can flip. So, and again, you see all of that outlined, and if you can see now, they should be comfortable enough, you know, as the group and working together. So you can see I'm starting to put more time into the actual trainings because they're beginning to develop and become maybe a little more intense and complicated. So stuff like the icebreaker and stuff, you know, I've decreased the time in them. You can flip. So for this week, this is the most important week because as you will see, this is where we're gonna do a lot of the role playing because they created their stories, had a chance to work on them and practice them. So now it's time for us to start role playing. So what's gonna happen when you get there? What are you gonna say? And let's say it, you know, because sometimes you have to allow people to, you know, practice what they want to say or how they want to say it or how they want to tell it, as long as they have included all of their points. But at the same time, another part of this training is gonna be how to actually educate the policymakers. So even though you're using your personal story or you're telling a story that impacts someone's life, then you need to be able to, we're going to teach them how do you tie that to a a social determinant of health. Like, you know, sometimes I may have to go to the doctor. I don't live on the bus line, but I can't get cab transportation because there's no funding. So that's what we're gonna focus on in that week. And most of the trainings you can flip so you can get to the training schedule. And most of the trainings, the reason that I use a week, train a week, come back, stay off a week, because I want people to be able to let what the information they've learned, you know, let them be able to take it and regroup and think about it, how they want to do it, because when you're doing trainings like this week, next week, you know, there's no time to process. So that's why I set up 1 week, off a week, then the next week you can flip. So these calls, this is something else I did after I had finalized what I wanted to do in my recruitment process, as far as contacting people, asking them if they were interested. I used like their addresses to identify who they would speak with. We called and I pretty much scheduled appointments on that day. When I was speaking to one of our legislators who I have a relationship with, you know, if I was under the thought that maybe, you know, we could, like, you tell them you want to schedule an appointment and you get 2 or 3 of them in a room. But she told me it wasn't going to work like that, since session starts on the 9th. She said they'll be on the floor, and what'll happen is you can schedule calls because everybody's now calendar is open, but they don't start taking appointments until after January the 9th. So then I sat down and I looked at the calendar, and then I started calling. So I I got all appointments on that day, and they give you like a 15-minute window. So basically, I don't have an appointment because I made myself like the timekeeper to make sure I got people where they're supposed to be, because the representatives meet on one side of the Capitol and our senators meet on the other side of the state Capitol. So I'll kind of be like in between. And some other folks that are in the coalition will be assisting me, like, if I'm on one side, somebody else will be on the other side, making sure we get people to whatever office they need to be in or at, or what spot that they should be at that designated time. You can flip. And this is the list for the representatives. That previous list was for the senators. And in working with the other lady, the legislative aides who helped me, I'm sorry, I'm plugging up the phone, who helped me schedule some of the appointments, I was asked that when, you know, make sure that if like somebody has a 9:15 appointment, that try to make sure that they're where they are gonna meet the person like 5 minutes prior. She said, because most of the time when they come out, you may not, even though it's a 15-minute window, you may get 6 to 7 minutes at the most. You can flip. So our 5th training, our last training, is gonna week 5 is gonna deal with like social media. In order to like not record, but to show what we've done and what we're doing. This is where we're gonna, most people know how to post on Facebook, but somewhere I went to a training, and there's such a thing as social media etiquette. And those are some of the things we're going to be talking about in this. Like, you can flip so you can get to the agenda. Like the etiquette, like how to make an Instagram post, how to use a hashtag, when you want to go live, you know, things you want to say, things you do not want to say, as far as like when you're talking about language, like, you know, because I'll be on Facebook and I may see somebody post something like, you know, somebody got full-blown AIDS. No, that's not what you're supposed to say. You're supposed to say a person living with HIV. So I just want to make sure that we have the right language, they're using the right words, and sometimes people say things quick and be done posted it on Facebook, and you'd be surprised how many people don't know how to actually go back once they posted something and either edit it or delete it. So we would just want to make sure they have all of those tools. And one thing I do a little Twitter. I mean, I'm not the person that tweets and get locked out like a lot of people out here talk about. So we actually, one of our IT guys from our organization is actually gonna come in and talk about that. As far as social media, how do you delete something? How do you edit something? How someone's gonna come in and talk to us about some of that. So you can flip. So these are like the different social media things we're gonna talk about. And we're also gonna be in social media training, talking about campaigns. And you can flip. Like, we're gonna talk about like good campaigns, like campaigns that talk about awareness, campaigns that talk about stigma, the different type of campaigns, and we'll be creating actually some of our own. You can flip. And so the last part is our debrief. And this is gonna be after the actual Education and Awareness Day event. And we're gonna talk about the lessons learned, how well we did, what possibly could we have done better, what could we improve, and then maybe schedule a time frame to make a follow-up visit or call. I'm in the process now of actually, on my Christmas break, I'm gonna start pulling together like the information from Louisiana that talks about like our HIV criminalization, housing, and stuff, those things, in order to create a packet that we're gonna be leaving with them. And that's it.
Amazing. So I have to say this out loud. We ask folks, the fellows during their practicum to complete one project. Maybe it's a training, maybe it's a brief, maybe it's a coalition. Sharon's practicum includes 4 trainings, a coalition, and an advocacy day, and follow-up. It is a hugely ambitious project. It's absolutely amazing. The planning that went into it is truly stunning. You're implementing the trainings that we did as policy fellows to teach them forward to your community. Great, great job. Thank you for sharing with all of us.
Thank you for all your help.
All right, and then from there, I'm going to flip through Cheryl's because we already did it. I'm sorry for folks who don't like that. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Rika. Rika, are you in a place where you can talk?
I'm going into the library as we speak.
Okay, great. So while Rika does that, I'll just say to everyone, you know, this has been a truly inspiring webinar. I've felt sort of on the verge of tears just reflecting on all of the work that you all put in. And what's not seen by the folks who are on this webinar, except the former policy fellows who know what went into it, is all of the back work and the planning and the deep commitment to showing up on webinars when, you know, you're not in person. It's on a Friday. Maybe you're working, you know, maybe you have home responsibilities. There are so many different things that can make it difficult to continue to engage. And y'all's commitment to this and to really gathering this information in order to complete policy projects and to share it with your community and to really push forward for positive change is so inspiring. And so I see you all, I appreciate you all. And I know that every single person who's on this webinar, whether they were a fellow before, hope to be a fellow, or are not, that's not even in their orbit, they're on here to celebrate you and your accomplishments. So I hope you all take that home with you.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, so I'm gonna mute myself and you just tell me when to switch.
I'm ready. So I'm out doing syringe exchange as we speak, which brings us to my topic. Syringe service programs. So syringe service programs are community-based prevention programs that can provide a range of services, including linkage to across to and disposal of syringe and injection equipment and vaccinations, testing, and linkage to care. On a daily basis, I'm seeing this as I'm out doing syringe exchange. We're doing seeing testing. So far, I've been doing since
Rika?
June, and
Rika, you're coming in, you're cutting in and out a little bit.
Have had 35 reactive tests for hepatitis and 2 reactive tests for HIV in people into treatment. Go somewhere else. All right, how is that? Can you hear me?
So much better, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I had to come outside of the library because apparently it's not a good reception. Okay, so where was I? So syringe service programs are proven to be harm reduction measures in the combat and the spread of the HIV virus and other illnesses. So what is harm reduction? Harm reduction refers to policies, programs, and practices that aim to minimize negative health, social, and legal impacts associated with drug use, drug policies, and drug laws. Harm reduction is grounded in justice and human rights. It focuses on positive change and working with people without judgment, coercion, or discrimination. Harm reduction is huge in my practice. We love to meet people where they're at and develop relationships. That is strongly considered harm reduction, because if people don't have trust in you, they're not gonna tell you the things that are going on or access treatment or care. Harm reduction efforts prioritize safety rights, dignity, and individuals engaging in the activity rather than focusing on ending or preventing the activity. So this approach, this approach respects people's autonomy to make their own choices and literally focuses on reducing harm that can result from those choices. Thus, criminalized activities, harm reduction practices may include reducing likelihood of contact with criminal justice systems and harm that results from criminal justice systems itself. This harm reduction philosophy, I lost my place. This harm reduction philosophy colloquially describes meeting people where they're at, just as I was talking about it a little bit ago. So some of the diseases that are associated with drug use are viral infections, which are bloodborne, hepatitis A, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HIV, and bacterial infections. And what we see in our mobile unit is bacterial infections a lot. We see people who have abscesses and don't receive care because they don't trust the healthcare systems to treat them effectively. They typically go into the hospital and get treated like crap because they're drug use. So hepatitis C is a leading cause of death among all infectious diseases worldwide. The CDC estimates that 41,200 acute hepatitis C cases in the United States in 2016 alone. Estimated 2.4 million have hepatitis C in the United States, so that comes out to about 1% of the US population. 85% of hepatitis C infection progresses to chronic infection like liver, cancer, fibrosis, cirrhosis. IDU, which is IV drug use, is currently the most common risk factor for hepatitis C, developed in countries 60 to 80% worldwide, not just in the United States. And in Colorado, it's estimated that 70,000 people have been exposed to hepatitis C virus, and 50% of those folks don't know that they were actually exposed. So huge numbers. And then another little graphic here, it says 1 in 10 new HIV diagnoses in the United States are attributed to injection use or male-to-male sexual contact and injecting drugs. Men who report both risk factors. Give me a second. Hey, Mercedes, are you waiting? Jake's in the van if you want to go and meet him.
Are you guys walking to the park anytime soon?
No, but Jake's in the van if you want to meet him.
Okay, I'm gonna go grab my points.
Okay.
Because I'm like, they're scattered, but then
Okay, thanks. Sorry, guys. I had a participant who was trying to get my attention. Okay, so some risk, the risk for HIV, for getting or transmitting HIV is very high. An HIV negative person uses injection equipment that someone else with HIV has used. This is because the needles, syringes, or other injection equipments may have blood inside of them and may carry blood that contains HIV. So HIV can survive inside of a syringe for up to 42 days, depending on the temperature and other location factors. Substance use disorder. Substance use disorder can also increase the risk of getting HIV through sex. When people are under the influence of substances, they are more likely to engage in risky sexual behaviors, such as having anal sex or vaginal sex without a condom or protection. So having sex with multiple partners, also having sex with multiple partners, or trading sex for something of value, money or drugs, or even a place to live. So 1 in 60, as I can't read that. Kelly, will you read that for me? It's really blurry.
1 in 60. An HIV negative person has a 1 in 60 chance of getting HIV every time they use a needle that has been used by someone with HIV.
And then number 2, sharing syringes is the second riskiest behavior for getting HIV. Receptive anal sex is the riskiest. Is that what it said? Blurry.
Yeah.
All right. So other risk of other infections and overdose. So sharing needles, syringes, or other injection equipment also puts people at risk for getting viral hepatitis. People who are injecting drugs, they should talk to healthcare providers about getting the blood test for Hep B and Hep C, and get vaccinated for hepatitis A and B. Currently, with our mobile syringe program, we are working with the Denver Department of Public Health, and nurses are actually coming out with us, and they're offering the vaccination to people who want to get it. There's been a huge outbreak of hepatitis A in Colorado within the population of people who are experiencing homelessness, and so those are large populations that we also serve. In addition to being at risk for HIV and viral hepatitis, people who inject drugs can have other serious health problems like skin infections and heart infections. People can also overdose and get very sick or even die from having too many drugs or or too much of the drug in their body, or from products that that may be mixed with the drug without their knowledge. So for example, fentanyl, a lot of the drugs that we see in Colorado, fentanyl is 100 times worse or 100 times stronger than heroin by itself. And in Colorado, we're seeing that fentanyl is mixed with everything. It's mixed with cocaine, it's mixed in meth, it's being cut in everything. And so a large push of what we're doing is getting people fentanyl strips so that they can test their drug before. And then we're encouraging people to slower, that they're plunging slowly, have Narcan on them, and definitely that they are not injecting alone. Best ways to reduce risk of getting a transmitted infection or HIV through injected drug use is to stop injecting drugs, of course. However, abstinence is not feasible for everybody. People who inject drugs can talk to a counselor, doctor, or other healthcare provider about treatment or substance use disorder, including medication-assisted treatment, which is methadone or Suboxone. People who continue injecting drugs should never share their needles or syringes or any other of their injecting equipment, such as cotton, cookers, and anybody who is actively injecting should always properly dispose of their needles and works by placing them inside of a sharps container or a biohazard container and drop them off at your local syringe exchange program. So here in Colorado, as I've been talking about, we have a mobile syringe exchange where we go to locations and we collect people's used needles, and then we supply them with all brand new injection works, cottons, cookers. We talk to them about the risks of hepatitis C. Folks know, but hep C can live out for up to typically about like tourniquets. A lot of people share their tourniquet. If they share it with somebody who has hepatitis C and it happens to get blood on it, they could potentially be at risk as well. So I added a couple of links at the bottom for more information about harm reduction syringe service programs. Please feel free to go to them or email me if you have any questions. And that's all I've got.
Thanks so much, Rika. I was wondering, so how is this a part of your advocacy? Like, how are you planning on using the fact sheet that you made?
I'm sorry, how am I what?
Planning on using the fact sheet that you made.
So I am going to put it in our van. I have actually already have. We have a couple holders where we can put information, all of our, kind of hep C and HIV stuff. I added this to our programming, and then we are blasting it out on Instagram. We're gonna actually blast it on Facebook. Our organization, or our program is called Life Point Denver. So if anybody's on Instagram and they want to follow us, it's Life Point Denver. And then we also plan on emailing it and doing like a mass email blast out to a lot of our partner organizations so that they can put it in their waiting rooms as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I just have to say,
Sure.
Rika is one of like a great example of like someone who lives their advocacy. The number of times that Rika has been on a fellowship call and still been like out doing outreach is amazing. So we appreciate you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you all. I appreciate you, Kelly, for dealing with all my tardiness and all my late projects and homework. The dog ate it.
Hey, this is what happens when you live life and are still trying to like be and do policy advocacy. We get it.
Exactly. But thank you I want to thank everybody at PWN for even having the policy fellowship. All of our coaches, everybody's fabulous and really supportive and instrumental in my whole. Like I said, we're at policy beasts now.
Absolutely. So from here, I wanted to say thank you to everyone who stayed on and listened to all of our amazing fellows present their work. So what I would love is if anyone has any questions for the fellows, that would be great. We don't have too much time, but I think we could get 1 or 2 in. And if you just want to raise your hand, or you can put it in the chat box and I'll read it aloud for our fellows to answer. So I'll just give you a little bit to think and just go ahead and pop that hand up or type something into the chat box. Mute you, and then I think my screen went down for whatever reason. So I'm sorry, I think that my PowerPoint just closed down. But basically we are asking for any questions that anyone might have. I have one for the fellows to troubleshoot. I'm wondering if anyone could go ahead and talk to what was the most meaningful part of the fellowship for you, whether it was practicum, in-person training, whatever it was. I'd love to hear from you about what was meaningful about the fellowship.
This is Deidre. I would have to say that a lot of the stuff, like especially yesterday when, you know, I was able to pull up the LIS for Virginia for the General Assembly of the laws that were are on the books or to be discussed this year, or the changes. That was probably the most amazing part, was to have it seen in person and then have it presented, and then folks to be receptive, but all of it to be where it wasn't like we had to overly explain, but people are excited about the fact that we are doing this work. Somebody's doing the work, whether it's just one person in the state like Cheryl, or whether it's Sharon that's doing something majorly ambitious, or whether it's Sophia that is coming up with a whole new plan for transgender reproductive rights. Our folks are excited, and all of us should be patting each other on the back, and maybe later after this call, have a drink or whatever you indulge in, whether it's soda or alcoholic beverages, libations, but it's just a real world practice and seeing it put in place.
Yeah, thank you. How about others?
I agree with Deidre. This whole experience has been awesome for me. Going through all of it, knowing where to look things up, knowing where to go, how to do it. I haven't accomplished it all yet, but yes, I'm willing to get out there now and give it a heck of a shot. I'll tell you that. And I'm hoping that this coalition will grow as we go along. So yeah, the whole experience. And I think for me, meeting everyone in person, that really helped me a lot to connect with others and inspired me to go forward. It actually pushed me out there even more. I mean, I was doing my homework and getting all of that done, but it actually pushed me out the door. So I think there's a lot to be said for that. Getting together and feeling it, you know, knowing that you have each other's backs, knowing that you have others that, you know, when you're fighting for others as well as yourself, it really does help you quite a bit. So yeah. Oh, and a special, you know, a shout out to PWN and a shout out to our coaches. So yeah, wanted to make sure to throw that in.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything they want to share? And I see that Antoinette has to go. So I just want to say goodbye, congratulations. You are fantastic. Like Rika said, y'all are policy beasts. Well done. And with that, does anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that for me, I agree with both Deidre and Cheryl. Having the opportunity to, and I'm sorry, my thoughts are so scattered. There's so much going on. the opportunity for education and to learn these things and to be in a space where I felt comfortable enough to ask. Um, Now I'm going back into circles where people are not even living with HIV, and because it sounds easy to connect with their representatives, they're all now feeling more empowered, thinking about. And one of the ladies just talked to me right before I left and told me, because before she met me, she was one of the people who didn't think that people who with felonies should vote. And she said that the things that I've been talking about and telling her about that has completely changed her opinion and mind about that. So that's what you guys are doing whenever you teach us and send us out into our own communities, is we're changing hearts and minds of people that, like, there's no way this lady would have ever come in contact with people like us, you know. And I hate to say it so stigmatizing, but I'm being real by that, by saying, you know, without this education and empowering me to feel like I know what I'm talking about, I don't think that I would have been brave enough. Well, I know for a fact I wouldn't be brave enough, because I lived this life in Indiana where I wasn't brave enough. So that's what you did for me.
Right, I agree with you, Connie, I do.
Thank you.
I want to agree as well, and I agree with Cheryl with the in-person meeting. That was so awesome to be able to hang with each other and get to know each other. And I just wanted to mention that I told my supervisor at Planned Parenthood about the fellowship, and she was like, I need connections. Can you hook me up? So I'm going to send some contacts your way, Kelly.
Yes, please do. Awesome. And
My
so
last comment is Nana. I know you guys are on here, Nana and Renita. She needs both of Kelly. I know, baby girl. Kelly and Brianna need raises like $1 billion a piece, because they put up with us and some more stuff, and they just smiled through the whole process. They deserve $5 billion in raises. Like, seriously, like, we wouldn't be here without those folks.
$5 billion, please.
Yes, please. And make sure it's in pennies, because that way it's not traceable and we don't have to worry about any extra ish.
Are we getting any of that? Kelly, who's your favorite person in the world? Are we getting a piece of that?
Yes, you must take us all out to dinner into like some crazy island, so that we could party. Like, I've always wanted to go to Fire Island, so I mean, something.
All right, so to close this out, we're gonna do a quick round robin, and I would love everyone to say one piece of advice for advocates who are considering joining PWN's Year 4 Policy Fellowship. My piece of advice is to reach out to former policy fellows. Go.
Yes. Never be afraid to ask for help.
Great.
I'm gonna go with Nike's Just Do It.
I'm going to go with you are the expert, trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, after you get input from PWN.
Get out there and don't be afraid.
I'm gonna also echo the do it and the trust yourself. You know, whether you know too little or too much, that you will still learn in this process.
Yes. Sharon, do you want to throw anything in? Okay, Sharon might not be in a space to talk, so I am going to close us out by wait, nope. Sorry, scrolling through. Apologies. We're gonna make it.
I'm sorry. I said it's worth it.
It's worth it. I love that. All right, so we're at our inspiring. I am sending my love and appreciation out to all of you. I cannot say enough about you and the work that you've done. And let's go out there and change the world. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations, everyone.
Congratulations to all of us.
Yay.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Oh, cry,
Great
Maria.
job,
It's
everybody.
exciting.